Welcome back to another episode of the Kick and Cover podcast, our random special teams podcast that we post every now and then. Coach um, Dan Morrison is with us. He's a special team coordinator at St. X down there in Cincy. Coach, how you doing?
Coach, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Doing good. Again, we spent probably 30 minutes just chit-chatting before we even this. But I mean, for our viewers, y'all had another good season. But I mean, overall, how'd your season go? And then I mean, both just as a whole, but also special teams wise.
We had a really good season this year. Had some transitions in the off season, new offensive coordinator, and then we made a pretty good playoff run. We lost to Moeller High School in the regional finals, a game that actually came down to special teams at the end. A game which we at the end we blocked a punt, scooped and scored, and then we had an onside kick at the end of the game, which we had three to four kids of our kids fumbled the onside recovery, which allowed Moeller to win. But it was a really good season. This is year two for me as a special teams coordinator at St. X. And the philosophy that we've been instilling in our kids and the direction our head coach, Coach Steve Speck, is supporting our direction of special teams has we've really seen a lot of drastic improvements across the board from last year and this past 2024 season.
Good. Well, let's kind of hit on that real quick, though, Coach. Like, how would you end up as the special teams coordinator there at St. X?
Okay. So kind of quick background on me is I graduated Archbishop Alter High School in 2016, and then I wanted to get into coaching in some capacity. So I went to college at Wright State local, and I asked my head football coach at Alter, at Dom Sites, if I could help out. He said, yes, first couple years, I'm just kind of doing all the grunt work, just figuring out if I want to do it or not. And that's kind of what he set me up to do is you got to start low on the totem pole, work your way up, kind of learn the game, X's, O's, et cetera. And then year four for me being there, which would have been the 2019 season, he offered me the special teams job. And I was the coordinator for 2019 and the 2020 season. And then I graduated college, moved down to Cincinnati, got hired on by Coach Specht late in the summer during that transition. So I helped out with the defense and with the JV team that year. Then the second year I was doing tight ends for the varsity offense. And then last year, 2023, Coach Specht offered me a special teams job, coordinator job. And then so I did that for 23 and then this past season, 2024.
Good. Now, I mean, like, let's kind of start with it because we've talked privately a little about this, but I mean, I think both at Alter and here have helped lead some changes and some development. How have you made special teams your own? Because again, obviously, when you work for two legendary head coaches who like doing things a certain way, um, and have had a lot of success with those ways, because again, both programs you've been are tremendously successful programs. How have you kind of made your own? What changes have you kind of led there at St. X, particularly um, in the special teams round?
I would say, especially with Coach Specht, is being very adamant and firm in what you believe in, and show them new ideas, show them new concepts, and walk them through it. Coach Specht's a great listener. Whether it's showing them something on film or a concept I would listen to or take from a coach's clinic or college trip, and molding it into our own that fits our program, but also being able to convince our head coach, hey, this is going to work, or there's potential here. Is this something worth that we can explore? And Coach Specht has been big on, he asks three questions. He said, what needs improved? What needs fixed? What can we explore? And that's really helped me being able to develop some of my own unique things is answering those three questions, presenting it in a really convincing way, like it's a presentation, like you're selling it to him. And then he's going to either buy it or not. But he's done a really, really good job with that. I appreciate him, very grateful for that. And that's really helped me grow as a coach as well.
Now, with that, like you mentioned there, kind of talking to him about changes or things. How do you present that to him? Is it video? Is it everything drawn out? Is it just throwing an idea out and then coming back with that stuff? How do you approach somebody like Coach Speck who's done this for a long time with stuff you think fits your kids and that you guys could implement in a variety of ways? How do you approach that conversation when okay he's asked, okay, what can we improve on? How do you come back with that?
All right, so usually, so in the off season, we'll meet in between December and January. We'll go through our items on the agenda, and he'll ask me just generally, what are you thinking for scheme wise or concept wise? And I'll say, this is what I'm thinking, or this is what we need to work on. So, for example, maybe we were going to explore a three-man shield rugby punt. And he says, okay, I'm fine with that. Now go out, do the research, and bring it back to me. So then he'll give me the resources. At St. X, we're very blessed to have funds in our football program where or he's got his networking that I'll go to a college or I'll call up a coach and take notes down and see if it fits our personnel. And it'll be the whole scheme, the alignment, etc. And then I'll come back with Coach Speck, and it'll be like a presentation in a classroom as a teacher. And I'll lay out the pros, the cons. I'll show them video, um, drills for it, the rules of it, and then we'll go through a lot of scenarios in which he loves to play devil's advocate. And he says, well, what if they do this? Or what if our personnel can't do that? And sometimes he'll say, okay, great, we can do it. Or no, I don't like the idea. Like what could be exploited? Is there areas that aren't fundamentally sound, or are there areas that you're asking too much of players to do? So he's really open book to a lot, but he wants, if he's going to like pay for your trip to go to a college visit or pay for your coach's clinic, he wants something in return. Um, and so that's really helped me. The first couple times I would have an idea and I would think it was great. And then it'd be about 10 minutes in the conversation that it would just be dead. And then he's like, you're learning here. Now, the next time if you want to do something, you either need to be more prepared or have more answers or do more research. So it was growing pains early on because I was like disappointed, but then it's helped me become a better coach and a researcher and a presenter.
Okay. Now I want to kind of build off that, like, because again, you just finished year two of doing it. What lessons did you take from year one into year two to improve your special teams? Like, because again, anytime I was this year 14 for me. Anytime I've coordinated something going into the next year, I've obviously learned stuff and like, okay, I need to fix this. I need to make changes. This doesn't necessarily fit us, so we're now going to do this. Okay, what did you take from year one going in year two as a special teams coordinator?
One of the big things for me was, one, don't assume anything. At St. X, we have a lot of smart kids, but that doesn't mean that they're going to get it on the first attempt. Like, it means walking through every single part of the concept, the install. And really, the important part is getting the kids to buy in what you're trying to do versus, oh, we're just going to line up in this. Well, once you explain, hey, this is why we're doing this, this is what we can exploit off of it, this is what's going to give us the edge, they really start to buy in because they see the importance of it. That was huge for me, is starting baby steps, ground zero with everything, and then building it. Whether it's install for PAT field goal, whether it's KO, punt return, and you start to realize as you go through all the building blocks that details matter, and there's always more and more that you can teach. And if there's more and more you can teach, that helps the kid understand their role or their job or what or how they're supposed to execute. The other thing too is, one of the big changes from year one to year two is getting the involvement of the rest of the assistant coaches. That was a huge change, was getting, between meeting with Coach Speck, we had discussed getting all the position coaches involved in some shape, way, or form with specials, because they coach position players. And those position players are also serving roles on special teams. So you get the kids to buy in even more when they see that, oh, my O-line coach is really big on PAT field goal, making sure we step down and we block. or our safeties coach who also played as a returner in high school and college, it's really important that he's down there working with our returners on kickoff or punt return. And that was really big, a big transition and a major step we took this past year.
Okay. Now, kind of continue with that. So, okay, you got position coaches involved. And so, how does your week break out? Do you try to do like two special teams a day and then recap them on Thursday? How do you break out, you and Coach Speck break out your week for special teams just to make sure, again, because you got to make sure, especially once you get in the season, that you're hitting on everything enough. Obviously, you've done a lot of the indie work by the time the regular season's worked on. You're going to hit on it here and there in the offs in the during the season, but like, how are you breaking up your special teams implementation for the week and just kind of making sure everything's good throughout the week for Friday?
Yeah, so it's Coach Speck has been really great about the time commitment to special teams and the emphasis and the importance of it. So we're just kind of walking through a a weekly schedule. Say we're getting ready for an opponent on a Friday night. We open up with Lakota West on week one every year. So the weekend prior, Saturday, after our scrimmage that night before, Saturday morning, the kids come in for a 30-minute film session on specials from what we did that night before the scrimmage. And then we start to look at Lakota West, or whoever we're playing, our next opponent. And then after we meet with the kids and kind of give them a quick run through of what to expect, and Coach Speck and I will meet and I'll do my own presentation on organization and installs that Saturday, Sunday, and then Sunday night, 6 p.m., send out the depth charts, the scouting report, the film clips, everything through Huddle to the kids. And then on Monday through Wednesday, Coach Speck gives us about 10 minutes beginning of practice, which is all specialist pre-practice. And that's where we'll have our punt team might do line slides on protection. You might have a punt block drill going on depending on what type of alignment we're going to see. We'll have KO, KR coverages. So we kind of rotate these circuits Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday as kind of built those circuits and drills on the opponent that we're going to see. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is we go through all the specials because that gives me time periods for kickoff return, punt return, PAT, and field goal. And so I'm really blessed that we get to do that every day. On Mondays after practice, we watch film again with the kids for about 15 minutes. And then it's on my responsibility when we film practice. We have a drone angle, end zone shot, and a press box shot of all the specials to start watching. Okay, what's working well, what's not working well. And then on Thursday, it's probably about 45 minutes or so. We go through all special scenarios, whether it's I know everyone's talking about the Chargers, I think with that free kick, and I was kind of laughing about it because Coach Speck and I were texting. We're like, we practice that every week. We practice scenarios, KO, KOR. Like, what if there's a 15-yard penalty? What if there's a safety? So field position, we go through all those scenarios. Punting out of the end zone when we're backed up, hands team, onside kick scenarios. So we have a huge checklist that we have put together that we make sure we hit with those kids because you never know when you're going to need it. And this year we had 4 or 5 teams onside kick against us, and we were good. And we had an onside kick twice this year, going the playoff game against Moeller, and it was the most perfect kick you could get, but we failed to recover it. So it's all that preparation, put your kids in a good spot because especially with our schedule and the opponents we play, special teams are a big deal. And you can see teams that really emphasize that and teams that might take some they might slack off a little bit or there's not as big of an emphasis that happens.
I worked for an old head coach who his big thing, and he could tell how well coached a team was just based off their kick return. And it's just like, okay, do they wait for the ball to kick? Are they dropping in the same spot every time? Are they doing little things right? Or is it just like laziness? It's leaving early, it's not full speed and jogs. Like that was his whole thing was that was the first thing he looked at every week was their kick return because that told him 90% of what he needed to know for the team that they were playing and how they were being coached. So, I mean, I agree, especially at your level. I mean, your level. I mean, I think any level you can take advantage of special teams, but like when you're playing again, like you said, Moeller in the playoffs, and it's come down to special teams plays because it's a. I mean, you got two really good football teams. So, I mean, those are the little things you need, um, especially to win those games. Kind of continue with that. Like, I mean, when how much how do you? Because I'm curious because everybody does this differently, both from a scouting report perspective and a film review perspective. So, like Friday, okay, there's some errors or things you need to fix. How do you get that out? Do you have film time with your players, or do you send out like huddle notes? And then same thing with the scouting report part is how much time does Coach Spett give you, say on Monday, or are you sending a lot of that out on huddle or some via other way? How are you handling the post game and the pregame film and scouting report portion?
All right, so like if we play a game Friday night, that night, game's over. I've already clipped all the huddle um, clips of specials that night. I've already made the notes. And then when the kids come in Saturday morning, it's already up on the screen and we're walking through it. One thing that I've learned as a coach too is if you just send stuff out to the kids, they're not going to understand it. They're just going to see notes, blah, 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 and they're going to move on. But and I know time is a huge factor in a lot of things. So you got to be really intentional with the time given. Like if five of our PAT field goals were good, but there was one of them that wasn't good, I'll just show that clip and say, look, the other ones are fine, but we're going to talk about this one because we don't have time to go
Yep.
through all that. Or if a team's going to have touchbacks on kickoff, and if they have two touchbacks against us, but we still win the game like 35-7, we're not going to really spend much time on that because we couldn't even line up a scheme return because we knew the kid was going to put in the back of the end zone. So very intentional with that. The other thing that we do as a staff is we start to work ahead on our next opponents on like that Thursday. So basically when the hay's in the barn for our Friday opponent, that Thursday night, I start to organize some of the film we have on our next opponent so I can at least get a feel for what I need to present to the kids Saturday morning. So after our game on Friday night and Saturday morning, we've addressed what we did as our special teams unit. Then I'll transition into, okay, hey, this is our next opponent. I'm going to show you a handful of clips of what to expect or to see. So then when I put the whole scouting report together, you guys can click to what I was showing you. Kind of giving them a visual. And then when I have the diagrams or the explanations or the more advanced scouting report sent to them, they already have an idea. And again, our kids are pretty smart with being able to grasp the scouting reports and matching it because there's um, that drive they have because they want to be successful, they want to win, and they know, especially with special teams, that it matters. And when they see the coaching staff's invested in them, they return that to us as well. So it's a blessing we have at X. I know it's not like that at every school out there, and with the types of kids you have, and for us, is roster size is going to be much bigger than other schools. But I think um, by showing the kids directly as a coach regarding specials, what you do and what the opponent does, that's going to help them when they get on the field Friday night.
Okay. Now, I'm curious because we've sort of had this talk, and again, part of the reason I made this special teams podcast, oh God, was 3-4 years ago, was because again I was special teams coordinator at the time, and one, it doesn't special teams doesn't get talked about enough in clinics. Let's just be honest. Two, the rooms are 90% empty when you go to a clinic anyways, so people don't like putting together special teams rooms at clinics. They just don't like. That's why you see most of them, like if you go to the like a glazier, most of the special team clinics are really late at night when everybody's drinking, or they're Sunday morning when 2/3 of the people have left, so the hardcore people are there. But again, people, again, going back to it's little details that win. So when you talk to special teams coaches, or like somebody talks to you about special teams, or you look at other schools, what do you think like little details they miss in preparation? because I think that's, again, preparation buy-in at high school are 90% of it. Like, again, execution is also a big part of it, but again, without the proper preparation, you're not going to get there anyway. So what little details you think, like just observing other schools and kind of how you've done it, talking to special teams coaches, what do you little details you think other special teams or high schools in general miss?
I think one of the big things is just their personnel of who they put out there. So for at St. X, we primarily will keep like offensive guys on like offensive based special teams, like kickoff return, tight ends, fullbacks, receivers, running backs. Um, because if somebody decides to do an onside or a squib or a sky kick, we have those guys that play offense or they handle the ball all the time in practice. They're going to be hands ready. Um, Kickoff coverage guys, fast linebackers, safeties, DBs. So one thing is I'll look and again it's sometimes about the amount of time you want to put into it is I'll take a roster and I'll just start looking at numbers and kids and be like, okay, this team thought it was a funny idea to put an offensive tackle on the front line of KOR. If we need an onside kick, we're probably going to target that person. Um, so I think some of that is personnel based. Is I'll look at who's the wings on or tight ends on PAT field goal. Are they legitimate big players? Are they starters or are they just putting a kid out there just to, give them a quarter, like playing time? I think some of those details get missed. I also think um, when you're installing something like start to finish, it's the very basics, like kickoff. Is everybody crossing the line at the same time? And you freeze the frame on your on huddle, the video, and you can just take that little arrow, draw it right down the line. You're like, okay, we have 5 guys that are 3 steps behind somebody else. So I start to look at those little things when I watch an opponent because I like to see, to me, I like to see how I can tell kind of how coached up they're getting or how not coached up they're getting based on kind of like what you're saying with your old head coach, or just kind of watching other teams KOR and just that's all he needed. Were they dropping in the right spots? Were they sprinting? Were they just staying there? Were they taking off too early? So that's one of the things that I look at early on. Does that answer the question?
100%. Like I said,
Okay.
again, I think, again, everybody has a different way to approach it, but like, again, there are vast amounts of details. Um, and again, some won't adjust at all on certain things. Like, um, I think one year at Northwestern, we kicked with 3 straight onside kicks, got 2 of them. They'd not adjusted their front at all. And then the third one bounced off my kid's hand out of bounds. So, like, again, little details like they're not going to adjust, and there's a hole here. Like, we're going to try to take advantage of it. Little details like that. Last question I have for you is like, because I'm always curious, and you've hit on it a little bit, but I'm just seeking a little bit more detail. What does your January through June look like, both from a self scout point, like studying standpoint, and do you do anything? Because again, we get 7 mans in Ohio. Do you do anything with your kids between January and end of May? Like, again, because I did when I was at Fairborn, I did a little bit. Um, but again, I've been places where you do stuff with special teams, you sort of like kickers only, and others where you don't. So, like, what does your January through June, like May 31st, June 1st, look like?
All right. So January will be, um, I'll meet with Coach Specs after the Christmas break. So here in a couple of weeks as present everything from this off season, like the kind of the final report. And then we'll go back to the questions of what we need improved, what needs fixed, what can we explore. And then really between January, February, March, it's all research and clinics. It's going to Glazier clinics, a Nike clinic, um, a staff visit or just an individual visit to Notre Dame or Ohio State, Kentucky. Our associate head coach has a lot of connections. So usually we'll pick about 5 to 6 places, go research, talk about just, and if we can walk away with 1 to 2 things, it's a win for us. Um, and then kind of organize all of that together. I'll also start going through personnel. One thing that we do at St. X, especially special teams last year and this year, is you lose kids on special teams because they graduate, but then you also have kids that are returning. We like to keep those kids if they did a good enough job, like our personal protector on punt. He's back this year. I'm not going to move him off punt protection from his spot because he did a really good job this year. So what we try to do is we try to find new starters on special teams in the offseason in the weight room. We talk to those kids and we're like, hey, we think this is where you could play on KO or KOR. So they kind of get excited because they know the competition level is going to be tough to earn a full starting spot in some. And then about April, May, we'll let the kickers come out. Probably it's usually once a week. They'll go out in the field. They'll get kicks in, snaps with the long snappers. Um, More just to get an idea of exactly where they're at or where they could be strength wise between 4 months of lifting. Has their leg gotten stronger? They go to all their Coles camps and their Rubio camps. So kind of take all those measurables and start to mold. Okay, are we going to have a kicker who can get it into the end zone all the time? If yes, great. That changes our philosophy a little bit. If we don't, we're not seeing that in the springtime or we're unsure, then we got to start adjusting a little bit. So we don't do a ton with the specialists themselves, punting and kicking and snapping in April or May, just because they're involved in other sports or just field availability. But more of it, a lot of it's just more um, what they're doing in the weight room and speed, agility, and those types of movements.
Coach. Do you have a Twitter, by the way?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so coaches, his Twitter will be in the bio. Give Coach a follow, reach out to him, all that lovely jazz. Like, share, subscribe for the YouTube algorithm crap, so people can find this. Since it's all based off liking, commenting, I guess. And otherwise, that's another episode of the Kick and Cover podcast.